Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone connecting from around the globe. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today for the launch of the Knowledge Platform for Inclusive and Sustainable Food Markets and Value Chains, or KISM. I'm Swati Malhotra, your moderator today, and Communications Specialist for IFPRI's Markets, Trade, and Institutions Unit. Currently, there is no dedicated knowledge platform focused on the inclusiveness and sustainability of food value chains available. So to fulfill these two needs, Work Package 4 under the CGIAR Research Initiative on Rethinking Food Markets, in partnership with Evidensia platform and ICIL, have established KISM. The Rethinking Food Markets initiative is a collaboration between 7 CGIAR centers and important local and global partners from the research, policy, and development community, as well as the private sector. The initiative is working with partners in Honduras, Guatemala, Nigeria, Uganda, Ethiopia, Uzbekistan, and Bangladesh to make globally integrated and domestic value chains inclusive, efficient, and environmentally sustainable. ICIL, our partner, is the global membership organization for ambitious, collaborative, and transparent sustainability systems. Founded in 2019 by ICIL, Rainforest Alliance, and WWF with the support of the Global Environment Facility, Evidensia helps partners access and interpret credible research on the sustainability impacts and effectiveness of supply chain initiatives and tools. It provides a portal to information and evidence and supports shared learning through its insight and analysis. In this event, we look forward to unveiling KISM, its benefits, and explore how it's useful in our current work streams under the initiative. We will also hear from our stakeholders about how the KISM platform can be useful for them and on what else we can offer. We are very excited to have a lineup of leading experts and provocative speakers with immense research and policy expertise on the table today. Our panelists include Rob Voss, Initiative Lead for the Rethinking Food Markets, also Director of the Markets, Trade, and Institutions Unit at IFPRI, responsible for economic analysis and policy support for numerous international bodies on sustainable agricultural development, food security, inequality, and poverty reduction. Kristen Komives, Director of Programs at ICIL. Kristen works in ICIL's program strategy and as a technical expert on data, performance monitoring, research, and on topics such as living wage and living income. Rita Mendes, Senior Coordinator of Impacts at ICIL. She works on impact research, research engagement, monitoring and evaluation, and topics including livelihoods and living income. Nicholas Minot, Work Package 1 Lead for Rethinking Food Markets Initiative and Deputy Director of the Markets, Trade, and Institutions Unit at IFPRI. Nick carries out research on a number of topics such as agricultural market reforms, value chains, income diversification, nutrition security, and food price transmission. Jordan Chamberlain, Work Package 2 Lead under the initiative and spatial economist with CIMMYT. He conducts applied research on smallholder farm households, rural development, and policies designed to promote welfare and productivity improvements. Kate Ambler, Work Package 3 Lead for the Rethinking Food Markets Initiative and Research Fellow at IFPRI. Her research interests include gender and household economics, evaluation of agricultural programs, and migration and remittances. Our partner and stakeholder, Mr. Abubakar Haruna from the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development in Nigeria. Muhammad Yakubu, another stakeholder of the initiative and the CEO of Bankasa, an agri-tech company in Nigeria. Sunho Kim, Senior Data Manager at IFPRI. Sunho works closely on the initiative Work Package 4 and provides information management support for the KISM platform. Tom Reardon, Distinguished University Professor of Agricultural, Food, and Resource Economics at Michigan State, and one of the foremost experts on value chain research and food system transformation in developing countries. And last but not the least, Hope Mickelson, Associate Professor at the College of Agricultural, Consumer, and Environmental Sciences at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. She's also part of our team under the initiative working on meta studies. Before we get started, I want to share a few suggestions to making this virtual event as interactive as possible. Number one, our panelists have shared their views. We will open for questions from the audience, and we invite you to engage actively. We appreciate you sharing your questions at any time during this event via the Q&A chat function on the Zoom platform. Please indicate to which panelist your question is directed, if applicable. Please also indicate your name and affiliation, if you will. Questions will be addressed after all panelists have provided their initial remarks. This Zoom meeting allows for audio and video participation from all participants. So if you'd like to ask a question using audio, please use the raise hand function during the Q&A round to pose your question. And finally, this meeting is recorded, and if you have any reservations, please reach out to us privately using the chat window. With that, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Rob Voss, to set the stage and to introduce the KISM platform. Rob, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Swati, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this launch of the Knowledge Platform for Inclusive and Sustainable Food Markets and Value Chains. Today, we want to engage with all of you in making this knowledge platform into a meeting place for sharing data, evidence, and insights, and make it function as a platform for dialogue about innovations, investments, and policy interventions to make food markets and value chains inclusive and sustainable. As I look forward to our discussion today, let me introduce the main objectives of this initiative. Could everybody?
Yeah, Rob, you're unmuted now.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so look. Am I unmuted now? Okay, I'll start with this again. So as I look forward to our discussion day, let me introduce the main objectives of this initiative to give you the background to this new knowledge platform. If you go to the next slide, please. As we're all aware of the food sector and the food system challenges. So let me not dwell on those, but rather emphasize the great opportunities that match those challenges. The food sector makes up 1/5 of the global economy. It's the world's largest source of employment in general, but the livelihoods of most poor people depend on it. It's also a major source of greenhouse gas emissions and vulnerable to climate-induced supply disruptions that can affect the food security of many. Urbanization and changing diets are profoundly changing food markets and value chains, which are seeing new products, modernizing distribution systems, and growing use of digital technologies. These challenges provide also huge opportunities for greater value addition and improving the incomes and employment as we recover from the COVID crisis and the global food price crisis, but only if we organize markets and value chains in more inclusive ways. We also have to do things more sustainably. So the key question is, how can we leverage markets and value chains to address nutrition, livelihoods, and the environmental concerns in food systems all at the same time? If we go to the next slide, please. So in addressing this question, the focus of the initiative will be on the hidden middle of the value chains. This is where most of the dynamic changes are taking place already. So how to influence market behavior and policy decisions to create better jobs and income opportunities and adopt sustainable practices along food value chains. If you go to the next slide, please. Well, research-wise, this will require a fresh approach. We need to look at food systems at large, at food supply chains from farm to fork, but also we need to understand well the ongoing dynamics. If we want to change things, if we don't understand well how the markets operate, then it will be very difficult to make such changes. We also should understand that no single innovation or intervention will likely provide lasting solutions. But building on existing dynamics, we want to change behavior and conditions to address multiple constraints. For example, as we learned from our first round of consultation with stakeholders in Nigeria, and we'll hear more about it later on in this launch of the knowledge platform. In Nigeria, there's a felt need in fruits and vegetable value chains to obtain evidence on the impacts of jobs and incomes for women and youth, food loss reduction, and greenhouse gas emission reduction. And this will require addressing multiple constraints. This could be done, for instance, by bundling sets of innovations, both in terms of how we improve things along the logistics, the process, and product improvement. So this may include process and logistics improvements for product quality upgrading, like using solar-powered cold chain storage and transportation, introducing more inclusive business models for managing the cold chain and for use by smallholders and traders, and by certifying the quality and maybe use digital traceability in order to secure that quality, but also guarantee that the price premium to be earned by farmers and traders is matching the quality improvement. And last but not least, we also need to look into what is the existing market price support, if it is of government support, for the scaling and the adoption and the consumer acceptance of these changes in the value chain. If we can combine these things in proper ways, then, and that's what the initiative is all about, to provide the evidence of the potential for the scaling of these opportunities and make these organizational innovations function with the appropriate market incentives and policy support. If you go to the next slide, and this is also where the knowledge platform comes in. We see it as critical for the initiative's outcomes, but more generally for looking beyond the initiative and actual changes on the ground through the sharing of the existing as well as the new evidence we create through the research initiative of the evidence based on markets and value chain innovation, to stimulate dialogue and consultations with and among stakeholders regarding the design and effective innovations and interventions promoting inclusive and sustainable value chain. And last but not least, also assessing what happens if we scale up the interventions and what both potential trade-offs could emerge when we move things in these directions. We go to the next slide, please. So where does it fit into the initiative? Following stakeholder consultations we held before the start of this initiative in the beginning of last year, we targeted country context in 4 priority work areas and work packages. The first 2 focus on different types of markets for high-value food commodities. One on globally integrated value chains catering for international markets, and another on food value chains serving domestic markets in the target countries. The third work package looks at inclusive business models for cross-food market services, especially in logistics and finance, and leveraging digital. The fourth work package looks at across these first 3 work areas and proposes to create, as we are launching today, the knowledge platform for policy dialogues and a change of evidence and ideas, as well as for the sharing of a common and consistent agri-food database that we'll use for global and country scenario analysis to assess the potential for scaling and identify what the trade-offs are. And each of these work packages will seek to identify the multiple obstacles to generating greater value added and adopting sustainable practices, and come up with bundles of game-changing innovations and incentive schemes to overcome those obstacles. If we go to the next slide. So in a nutshell, what we want to achieve is with this knowledge platform to provide you as users as a lab for best practices, but also to add to that laboratory for best practices. We'll populated with outcomes from several meta-studies, which we'll hear about more, and also possible guidelines of how to identify, design innovations and investment projects in order to achieve the goals that we're after. It will also be home for the data and model-based scenario analysis to assess the opportunity for scaling and trade-offs. But most importantly, we wanted to serve as a platform for knowledge sharing and stakeholder dialogue. For this, I'm happy to launch today the knowledge platform for inclusive and sustainable markets and value chains, and invite all of you to turn it into your platform and make it to best of your use. And with that, Swati, I give it back to you.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much for that presentation. I now hand over to our next set of panelists, Kristen Comeves and Rita Mendes from ICEAL and Evidensia, to dive deep and tell us further about KISM. Audience, I want to remind you to share your questions and comments in the Q&A chat so we can line up those for the Q&A session at the end. Kristen, Rita, over to you.
Great, thank you very much. Could you move to the next slide, please?
Next one, please.
Yes, there we go. There we go. Okay, so to introduce KISM to you today, I'd like to start just with a few thoughts on the role that knowledge platforms like KISM play in the work that we would all like to see happen around the world. So transforming systems, as we think about how to transform systems, evidence and knowledge sharing have a really important role in that. And that role is recognized, for example, through the Sustainable Development Goal 17. So it helps us understand what the current status is, what has worked in the past, what different policy measures might lead to what kinds of change. And all of that helps inform the work that we want to do. Next slide, please. We have experienced through the work that we've done at ICEAL that there is actually already quite a bit of recognition of the value for generating evidence. Where we still think there's a lot of work to do and where we hope that KISM will come and play a role is in the use of that evidence, the step between generating evidence and actually making sure that the evidence is used to guide decision-making and to inform action. Next slide, please. So what role can knowledge platforms play in trying to address that challenge of the uptake of evidence so that it can be used to help lead to system transformation? So one important role of knowledge platforms is accessibility of information, simply making it easy to find what already exists so that it's possible for researchers to build on existing knowledge and to complement that, so it's possible for stakeholders to find the evidence and information that's most relevant to them. These platforms can also create transparency, so being really clear about what we know and what we don't know, what we have found to be, when I say we, I mean the global research community has found to be effective or impactful, and what hasn't been so effective and impactful. Also to promote learning, and that requires being more than just a website and more than just a research library, but actually using the platform as the spring, a place to jump off into having exchange between researchers and with multiple stakeholders. And ultimately then really trying to bridge this gap between research and practice, helping stakeholders to find recommendations and ideas, and helping also to ensure that research is informing, is building on what the needs and questions are of practitioners. Next slide. So we want to put all of those ideas into practice in the design and in the operation of KISM. KISM will be a one-stop shop for all of the research outputs that are coming out of the Rethinking Markets and Value Chain initiative. We also want it to be a gateway to help key user groups to access and find evidence and data, as I mentioned, and also to foster dialogue and engagement between stakeholders around the sorts of ideas and insights and questions that are coming up as a part of this initiative. Next slide. KISM is not going to start with nothing. In fact, if you visit it today, you'll already find that there is a lot of content on it. The KISM will be drawing on the outputs that are being produced from this initiative. That will be a very important part of it. It's also drawing on content and also bringing in the audiences from other relevant databases and platforms that already exist. Amongst them are Evidensia, which has been mentioned, and I'll talk about a little bit more, but also the Food Security Portal, the Value Chains Research Program, and the Living Income Community of Practice. So again, this will be a place that brings information both from the initiative itself as well as from these other platforms and initiatives together around the central questions that this initiative is addressing. Next slide. So ICEAL, let me say a little bit more. You heard a little bit about us at the beginning of this presentation, but to explain why we are part of this initiative and why we're partnering in the KISM. We work with sustainability systems and their business and government partners to try to tackle pressing sustainability issues. So we're working this market space, market-driven sustainability space. And we're known as credible or experts on credible practice and also innovation in sustainability systems. We lead two initiatives that will be contributing to KISM, so Evidensia and the Living Income Community of Practice. Next slide. So let me tell you a little bit more about Evidensia. So Evidensia is an initiative. It's also a platform, evidensia.eco, where you can find evidence and information about market-based approaches, initiatives, tools to driving sustainability. So what is it that we are learning and what do we know about the impacts of these market-based sustainability approaches? Evidensia has been around for quite a few years and we have a large user base. We also have over 1,200 resources on the platform right now. And the Evidensia team, who are all based at ICEAL, also run regular insight and learning webinars and produce briefing notes and things. So we're bringing both the resources and the experience of running Evidensia, we're bringing into the KISM. Next slide. And then quickly, the Living Income Community of Practice is a community of practice that we run with partners, Sustainable Food Lab and GIZ. And this is really a platform where people get together to talk about how to measure changes in farmer income and what sorts of things are working to actually drive improvements in farmer income towards a goal of living income. So the platform, the online platform already has tools and resources, which again can feed into KISM, but equally importantly, the dialogues and discussions that happen in this space are very relevant for this initiative, and we hope to link up with that in the more interactive part of the KISM work. Next slide. Now I'll turn over to my colleague Rita, who can tell you a bit more in detail about how the KISM platform works.
Thank you, Christine. I hope you can hear me well. So after this overview from Christine and from Rob on what KISM tries to convey and the main aims of the platform, I'm going to go through how that translates practically in the KISM as tools you can use. And as Rob was saying, this is your platform, so we've tried to build something that is as useful and as accessible for you to interact with us, to share information, and to be part of the platform. So we co-create something that brings value to the initiative. So this is the same slide that Christine shared, but it's just to remind these three main aims of the work we are doing, which is to bring all the knowledge from the initiative, to also include connections with other databases, and to include key resources that you may find useful that relate with the topic of food systems and markets and value chains. And lastly, but probably the most important area is to foster dialogue and engagement. So with those knowledge sources plus the work you are doing at the initiative and how you are working in your own spaces, we want to provide you with tools to engage and to share insights and collaborate. So next slide. So I'm going to go through each of the steps to show you how we have represented in KISM these aims. So the first one is about being a stop shop of all research outputs generated by the initiative. So in KISM, you will see a top bar with where you can click on explore outputs. So if you go there, you will see a page that consolidates all the initiative published resources. And you can also hover over explore outputs and you will see 4 rubrics, and each rubric represents a work package. So global integrated value chains is work package 1, domestic food markets 2, cross-market services is work package 3, and the knowledge tools is work package 4. And if you click in one in each one of those, you will have a page that includes all the papers corresponding to that work package. So you will get consolidated knowledge on a specific topic. And this is ongoing work. So we will be, as soon as the initiative publish a new paper, we will be uploading that to those pages. Those are not going to be only part of those pages, but they will serve as knowledge sources for creating events, for blogs, and for other knowledge products. But this is your main source if you want to find where the initiative content is being included. Next one. So for the second aim or objective, which was to be a gateway to help you as user groups to access all relevant evidence and data, you have the library. So if you click on Find Research on KISM, you will find a library with all the resources on the site, and there will be ongoing uploading of third-party content. So not just the initiative content, but other sources, for example, key papers from Evidensia and other sources. And we will also be producing bespoke communication products. So some research briefs or blogs that are sourcing from the knowledge we have from the initiative and other papers about the specific topics. Next one. I just highlighted read because that's where you will find the blog. So Find Research is the library and read rubric is the blogs. Next one. Sorry, next slide. Thank you. So finally, this big objective that we were talking about, which is about being a basis for partners and stakeholder engagement with key stakeholder, is through 2 tools. So the first one is if you click on engage, you will find events. So we are going to be organizing through the year regular events that would touch upon topics that have been worked on the initiative, also results from the meta studies that have been worked on, as Rob was introducing, and that really can help with this objective that Christine was saying, right? So closing the gap between research and practice and trying to see how we can use evidence to inform action. Next slide. This is the second part of the basis for engagement, which is the discussion forum. So you might have heard already, because you've received some emails from us on the discussion forum, to just log in and be part of the forum and participate in discussions. So there's already topics created that are relevant to the initiative work, but you are welcome to create new new topics in the forum and participate and comment to each other. This has an has an objective to have online discussions ongoing through the year, and they will also be created some ad hoc for specific events when we want to discuss about a specific topic. Next. Yeah, so that was the comment about the forum. Next slide. So this is not just everything that you will see in the KISM this year. I'm going to go through very quickly, Swati. I know I'm a bit over. It's just that you will see through the year we are going to work on new features. So there's data that is getting into the KISM. You are doing a lot of work. So we want to be able to work with that evidence and convert it in a way it can be communicated and interpreted to inform action. So that come through features to visualize that data, for example, features to map that data in a geographical map, for example, and it also come through features to look at research gaps and where we have evidence. So this point that Kristen was mentioning about transparency, right? So what do we know? What do we don't know yet? What are the main questions that we need to explore together? Next slide. And this is my final slide. So just a call to all of you to share with us content that you think should be in the KISM, share with us feedback, suggestions for stakeholder events too, and getting involved in the forum and sharing with your partners. Thank you.
Thank you both so much for that excellent presentation. I know I've learned more about KISM in the last couple of minutes, and I hope it's a similar feeling for everybody. Moving on now to our next section, we have a panel discussion on the subject, building a multidisciplinary research initiative. Here, the work package leads for the CGIAR initiative on Rethinking Food Markets will explain their work they have done so far. I first invite Nick Minard to take the stage, followed by Kate Ambler. Audience, very quickly, if you have not already, please use the Q&A chat to share your questions for the panel. Please include the name of your panelist to whom your question you want to be directed to, as well as your name and affiliation. Over to you, Nick.
Thank you, Swati. So my name is Nick Minard. I'm with IFPRI, and I lead Work Package 1, which focuses on global value chains. So essentially, we are looking for interventions to improve the efficiency, the inclusivity, and or the sustainability of selected global value chains. We have decided to focus on 5 countries. So there are 4 countries of major work. Bangladesh, looking at shrimp value chains. In Ethiopia, looking at sesame and oilseeds. We have a team working in Guatemala, looking at coffee. Guatemala and Honduras, sort of Central American project. And then we have a smaller initiative looking at fruits and vegetable exports from Uzbekistan. And in each of these, the goal is to identify innovations or interventions which can improve these value chains, and then to try to rigorously test them. And the idea is that if we can identify promising interventions, and if we can show that they're successful in having an impact on efficiency, on reducing costs, or improving prices that farmers receive, or in terms of sustainability or inclusivity, to bring in new groups of farmers, maybe marginalized groups or women. That if we can show that these interventions are successful in improving the value chains, that will facilitate their scaling up to a broader scale, both within the country and to other countries that produce the same export commodity. Now, we haven't really limited the areas of intervention, but we're looking in particular at ways to improve vertical coordination, that is coordination between farmers and traders and exporters, because we think that's a good strategy for improving the returns to farmers and making the value chain work better. Second, we're also looking at ways to upgrade product quality. Often there are sort of unexploited opportunities to improve quality and therefore raise the price that farmers can get for their product. And that's particularly true given the rapidly changing demand for particular characteristics, whether it's organic or particular production methods or particular quality in the product. And then the third area is identifying and scaling up digital innovations that make it easy to either trace the origin of products or provide farmers with information about markets and promote better connections, I guess, between farmers who tend to be very dispersed and don't have access to a lot of information, and traders and other sources of information that would help them make better decisions. Now, talking about KISM, I think there are two ways that we will be interacting with KISM. One is as a user of output from KISM. I think, in identifying innovations, in identifying partners to work with, I think KISM will be a valuable resource in terms of generating ideas or information about what has worked in other countries, what innovations, what institutional approaches, and trying to maximize the chance that the innovations that we select will have some success and have the potential for scaling up when we demonstrate their effectiveness. The other area of contact is as a supplier of products, of information that KISM can publicize, can circulate, can make available to a wider audience. And just to give you an example, last year we produced a number of outputs which are now available for wider use and available in KISM. For example, we have a scoping study for Ethiopian sesame value chain, which sort of explores the value chain, identifies key stakeholders, provides some data about the trends in the sector, and proposes a number of ways in which the value chain might be improved with better information, with contracts between between exporters and farmers. Right, so this report kind of covers those opportunities. We also have a scoping study for making better linkages between the processors and exporters of coffee in Honduras and farmers. This is a similar kind of overview of the coffee sector in Honduras with the results of an analysis that seeks to identify ways to improve the value chains, improve the connections among them. There's another study called Quiet Revolution by Small and Medium Enterprises in the Midstream of Value Chains of Developing Regions. This is a report by Tom Reardon and colleagues, which it talks about the fact that there are a lot of innovations, a lot of new technology being adopted by wholesalers, by traders, by processors that is not widely recognized. Things that are going on, that's the quiet part of the revolution, that they're not widely recognized because there isn't a lot of government support or stimulus behind these innovations, but it's just the work of thousands of traders and processors trying to find better ways to do things, finding ways to cut costs or to improve the flow of information or to expand output. And so Tom and his colleagues have a lot of nice examples there of these sort of unheralded innovations which are taking hold in value chains across the developing world. There are some other outputs that I haven't talked about, but those are all available in the KISM website. I guess let me just finish by saying that in 2023 and 2024, we plan to carry out an impact evaluation of selected interventions in each of these case studies, and to test the effectiveness of these interventions in improving the value chains, as I mentioned, in terms of efficiency, in terms of inclusivity, and or in terms of sustainability. So there will be many more sort of scoping studies and reports on the baseline surveys and policy briefs and eventually impact assessments in the coming, let's say, year and a half, 2 years. Okay, I will stop there and pass the microphone back to you. Thanks, Lottie.
Thank you for sharing your work with us, Nick. Passing the mic now to Kate Ambler. Kate, the floor is yours.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. So I can just tell you a little bit about our work in Work Package 3, which is on cross value chain services. And our focus in Work Package 3 is on logistics and on innovations in logistics and financial services. So we're going to be investigating sort of innovative services in these realms and doing impact evaluations around those innovations. Our focus is on 3 countries, Nigeria, Bangladesh, and Uganda. So there's no specific value chain focus because we're focusing more on the service aspect and less on the specific value chain. So just to give a quick example of the type of work that we're doing, we've started an impact evaluation in Bangladesh of an innovative financing mechanism for financing of livestock fattening for farmers who want to buy a livestock and raise it for 4 to 5 months and then sell it at a profit. We're working with a private sector company that does a sort of profit sharing model, and we're comparing that to a standard loan contract as well as to a control group. And in addition, there is a gender component because we're investigating how this can have impacts on women's empowerment and how we can bring women more into the market, because women in Bangladesh do most of the physical labor when it comes to livestock rearing, but they don't do any of the market-facing activities. So our goal there is to also investigate what would the outcomes be when we bring women into the market-facing activities as well. In terms of the outputs that we have so far, I can just ask you to, I guess this is the site where our outputs are listed. We've done a few things as our sort of as we were getting started last year. The first would be conceptual framework that some of our team worked on. That was basically like just thinking a way to sort of frame our thinking about the way in which these logistics and these financial services could really improve inclusion and yes, this is it, could really improve inclusion within the value chains and improve incomes for small actors, both farmers and other small actors in the value chain. Additionally, we've started some analysis of existing data to examine like where are within the value chain, where are the like areas where people can sort of grab value that could sort of increase their incomes. And so we had put out a blog that was looking at some of the initial evidence. So this is just a start looking at data from Nigeria, sort of comparing prices that farmers are getting for groundnuts at farm gate with what they're being sold to consumers at the consumer endpoint, and showing that there's like quite a large gap in prices there. So there's room. The question is, who is grabbing that value, and how can we direct some of that value towards the sort of poorer and and let the smallholders reap some of those benefits. And just as an example, for a final thing that we did, we also did scoping reports in all 3 of our countries in 2022. And this is the one for Nigeria, where the team talked to a lot of different potential partners and did a sort of scoping view of the entire landscape. And that's now available as well. And we have them available for Bangladesh and Uganda as well. So we're looking forward to this year continuing our fieldwork in in Bangladesh, and then also beginning evaluations in our other 2 countries. And all of our outputs will be also channeled to this resource. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kate, for sharing all your knowledge and all your work on the initiative using and the use of KISM platform as it relates to you. A quick reminder to our audience to share questions using the Q&A chat window. You will also have the opportunity to directly pose your questions to the panelists using your audio during the Q&A round. In the next part of this section, we will hear from 2 of our stakeholders in Nigeria about how KISM can be useful for them and what features they're looking for. Our first speaker is Abubakar Haruna from the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development in Nigeria. Welcome, Mr. Haruna. We're excited to hear your thoughts. Mr. Haruna, could you unmute yourself?
Okay, can you hear me clearly now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so we see KISM as a complementary technology that aligns with the Nigeria's agricultural policy, that is National Agricultural Technology and Innovation Policy, which was actually approved by the federal government last year, and it has received a lot of support from IFRI. For us in Nigeria, the creation of this knowledge platform is well-timed, as we have envisaged that this innovation will support the implementation of this particular policy, particularly its 3 or 4 components out of 10, which is knowledge creation and transfer, market development, and strengthening value chains development. So it is our belief that this intellectual property will support informed decision by public policy actors, and at the same time, create income and job opportunities in the growing food market. We also have gender policy in agriculture, which was developed by the ministry, just to ensure gender equality. Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Are you hearing me, please?
Yeah, you
Hello?
can go on.
Yeah.
We can hear you. Sir.
Okay. So we also have a gender policy on agriculture, which we believe this particular intellectual property will support its implementation, particularly in ensuring gender equities and inclusivity in the agricultural sector. So we have a lot of there are a lot of areas which we believe KISM will play a great role in the improvement of agriculture in this country, particularly in the value chain development. But be it as it may, we know there are some other areas of challenges which the government is doing its best to surmount these challenges. Now, KISM needs to be fully scaled up in this country. Therefore, we're looking at its scalability, usability, and at the same time, its sustainability in the country. You know, looking at agriculture in terms of constitutional responsibility of the three tiers of government. You know, a lot needs to be done at subnational government, and that is why we want to. It is our view that more emphasis should be given to subnational governments in trying to scale up this particular product. So at the same time, we don't, or rather we envisage few challenges in terms of access to internet accessibility, or that means accessibility of internet services by some of our rural farmers, because this particular initiative is more concerned with the smallholder farmers in the rural areas. But as a developing country, we still have a long way to go in terms of internet connectivity, and although there is an ongoing effort on the part of the government to address that particular issue. So we have gone through this particular platform, and we found it very, very useful in value chain development in this country and agricultural development generally. We don't, for now, we don't have any input to make. Where, let me say, we are satisfied with it, but as time goes, we will be looking at it and see where we'll make additional inputs or some observations, and the discussion continues. But I want to assure you that we'll try and see that we use it optimally for the objectives it has been developed for. Thank you very much. Hello?
Thank you so much, Mr. Haruna. And
was I audible?
Yes, you were audible throughout. Thanks very much. Thank you for sharing your thoughts about KISM and how it's going to be useful for you in the long run and also hopefully in the short one. Our second speaker in the stakeholder dialogue is Muhammad Yakubu, CEO of Bankasa. Bankasa is an agri-tech company in Nigeria, which provides innovative solutions to the challenges plaguing Nigerian farmers. Over to you, Muhammad. Mr. Yakubu, if you're here, could you please unmute yourself?
Hello.
Yes.
Is it okay if I share my screen?
Definitely, yes.
Okay. I was not allowed to share the screen.
Oh, you should be able to share it.
For my slide. For my slide. How's disabled participants sharing screen?
Let me fix that for you.
Okay. Sure.
And then could you please promote Mr. Yakubu to co-host so he can share his screen? Yes, Mr. Yakubu, you should be good to go.
Okay. So a quick one. So my name is Muhammad Yakubu Bubaro. I'm the CEO of Bunkasa, and I'm quickly going to take you what Bunkasa is all about. Bunkasa is an agri-tech and solution provider firm that is in partnership with the Maltop International Market. The market is the hub for vegetables and allied farm produce in Lagos, Nigeria, supplying to over 400 smaller markets in Nigeria and West African countries. The firm is technologically driving an innovation-focused organizations providing solutions to the challenges bedevil farmers in Nigeria. What's our vision? Our vision is to transform the agri-food system in Nigeria agriculture chain by supporting other interventions in minimizing post-harvest losses by 40% in the next 5 years and improving food safety through the use of post-harvest technologies and techniques.
Mr. Yakubu, quickly jumping in, could you full screen your slides? Could you use the slideshow?
Okay.
Yeah, on the top it says slideshow. Top taskbar.
Are we set now?
Yeah, if you click on slideshow on the top taskbar, it's right next to animations.
Okay, I forgot.
Yeah.
Sorry about this.
Yeah. Yeah. You can do from current slide if you want. Yeah.
Yes, sure.
Thank you.
So here is a few, what you can say, core of our activities, because as you know, the fresh value chain is interconnected with each other. That is allowing the process from farm to the market. And it is designed that if you don't some part and leave some part, you are going to have some problems in some other ways, one way or the other. So we try as much as possible to see how we can have farmers in the processing from farm to market. Our first solution is post-harvest management. That innovation was targeted at the packaging and transportations of tomatoes from farm to market by using plastic crates instead of wrapper baskets, which do not allow farmers to store their produce very well or transport their items. So we provide reusable plastic crate, in replacement of the wrapper baskets. And with that, farmers can be able to, store their items fresh and also transport to the markets. We also have information services where we provide services of information to farmers. Farmers can receive daily price updates and also comparison between market A, market B, and market C, so that farmers will choose and to know where they can be able to send their items. We also serve as an sourcing of agricultural platform where eateries, hotels, companies, and processing companies that wanted to to buy items directly from farmers can contact us, and we can be able to make that connections between them and the farmers. Our third services is knowledge transfer, where we do training of farmers, on demo plots and some other activities like empowerment training for the youth, particularly women, for the explorations of business, for self-reliance. The fourth is eco-friendly agro-input supply, where Bunkasa work to identify and promotion of agro-input, which do not only promote yield increase, but are also environmentally friendly. An example of this is the Bunkasa eggshell fertilizer, which provides an important nutrient, to the plants and was embraced by farmers. Our process. We divided our process into 1, 2, 3, and 4. Our first one is where we group farmers into clusters, so that to better have an idea where are they, how they are, so that we will know we move to process 2, where we train them on best agronomic practice. And we also provide them with the access to classical rental services. And the fourth one is that we give them access to market information and market linkage, where we provide them on where, like I said, comparison of different markets, where to sell, or people who need their items. Okay, here we are, the KISM relevance in Bunkasa platform. We recently partnered with the EFRI through CGIAR initiative, Rethinking Food Markets, as we believe that collaboration is the key to success. So we believe in the power of collaborations, and through this our own collaboration, we started to leverage on the KSM network to improve our logistics and market coordination services, because we realize that providing farmers with enough knowledge on training, on market information, on plastic crates will not help alone. There's also a need to help them with the logistics. So we also help farmers through this network, to improve on their own, sourcing of trucks and vehicles, where they can, put their own produce from farm to the market. And using IPRI as a platform, we are also working to make sure we increase, that is the quantity and number of plastic crates we have, because we have so many farmers that are currently in need of the services, and we are also going to make sure that we have meet smallholder farmers too, and also carry out the the largest farmers, to make sure that there's some kind of inclusivity and gender inclusivity on the initiatives. So through that, we are making sure that all items are fresh, are also sorted, also put in plastic crate, and we help farmers with the fortune of trucks and making sure that their items are safely conveyed and transported to the markets. Thanks. This is in short on my presentations today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yakubu, for that great presentation. We definitely learned a lot about Bunkasa, and I agree with you. Collaboration is indeed the key to success. And so we look forward to working with you. In the following, in the final part of this section. Yes. Okay, so moving on. In the following and final part of this section, my colleague Sunho Kim will now introduce the KISM discussion forum and demonstrate how to sign up and add comments to it. We encourage you to please sign up in real time, sharing your insights and thoughts. Over to you, Sunho.
Thanks, Fatih. I'm very happy to introduce the KISM discussion platform. So there are 3 ways to access the discussion forum. So Rita explained before, you can click this discussion forum button on the menu. You can go to KISM discussion platform. Another way you can go through is that there's if you're going scrolling down, there is a nice image banner. You can click it. It goes to discussion forum. Another way you can do is, if you know the URL, like you can open the tab and then you can type kism.discourse.group, then you can access the forum. So I mean, you can, even though you do not log in, you can see the content inside, but we highly recommend to log in and then add your comment there. So for example, if you want to sign up, you click the button on the top, sign up here, and then you can type your email address. In my case, I create some email for this event, and then I put my username, and then my name, and then password. The last important thing is that invite code. So the invite code for our forum is KISM, KISM, all uppercase. So then you can click the create your account. Then it shows you to send the email for activation to your email account. So in my case, I go to the Gmail, I see this email from the KISM discussion forum and click it, the link to activate. When you click the link, it goes to activation window. Click again, and you got the congratulations message. After that, it automatically goes to KISM discussion forum. So here I already log in, is my name, and then there is greeting from the system. And today we focus on the potential of bundled innovation. We opened this discussion from March 1st to March 7th today, and then we invite the discussion forum panelists. They are ongoing discussion there. So Rita nicely introduced what we are trying to do here. And then as you see here, there's a 118 view here and 5 users, and then there are 14 likes. So I can see the list of the users here. And then we add some of the improved storage and logistics here. And then we also brought some of the comment from Nigeria stakeholder into this platform. And then this morning, the Mirja from the EMI, she shared her experience on the bundled innovation. So I want to emphasize one thing here I found today about private sector, because she mentioned that private sector is often already thinking in terms of bundle and scaling them, which we hear from the Muhammad before this session. So we're going to be highly encouraged to working together with the government and then private sector and researchers together. Now I want to put my comment there. So when I can scroll down at the end and then click the reply button, and I already provide some comment. So I want to ask some of the opinion to the Muhammad. His username is Bankasa, so I just replied it. Then my comment is here. So that is the way to you access the KISM discussion forum and then put your comment there. One of the things I want to share is that how to use this forum. So this article show how to use this forum, and then there are some several tips you can use. So thanks so much for giving time to introduce this kind of discussion forum. So in the next session, since we're starting this discussion from March 1, the Christine, Hope, and Tom gonna conclude our discussion in terms of the bundled innovation. Back to Swati.
Thank you, Sunho. Thank you for that quick round and for telling us how to use the KISM discussion forum. And we now move on to next part, as Sunho suggested, a live chat on the KISM discussion forum. From the forum, we've picked a topic, and the topic is the potential of bundled innovations to increase smallholders and SMEs' competitiveness and profitability. And for this, I invite back Kristen Comivas with us, along with Tom Reardon and Hope Nicholson to participate. The floor is all yours.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. The purpose of our short panel discussion here is really to get the dialogue moving around this topic, which has been chosen for the forum discussion, and also to tell you a little bit more about the meta research that is happening within this program. So let me just kick off with a simple question, perhaps, I think, to Tom, to say, what really do we mean by bundled innovation? And can you give an example from the work that you're doing?
Thank you very much. I think that bundled innovation, you could think of it as bundled innovations as being a set of innovations that might start with one innovation and then give rise to a number of others spontaneously, or it might be a set of innovations that are all introduced at once into an agri-food system. And these innovations can be in the form of new products that are being produced, new technologies, either at the farm level or processing level or logistics level. They can be new ways of organizing a market or a supply chain, and new institutions, for example, new standards, or using contracts in a different way. And it can also be a set of innovations in policy, new kinds of policy that encourage or facilitate agri-food system development. And you can think of these innovations as bundled in the sense that they could be a single innovation that then, in a sense, creates spontaneously or leads a set of agri-food system actors to create innovations spontaneously after the introduction of a given innovation. I'll give an example. So you have an initial innovation, for example, in technology in one segment of an agri-food system, like at the farm level, and then there might be co-adaptation and a cascade of other innovations, for example, by wholesalers and truckers and others. And this takes place over a set of actors in the agri-food system, including input and agricultural service providers upstream from the farms, farmers, but also what I call the hidden middle, which is the midstream of the supply chain that is not missing, but often hidden from debates and policy discussions, which includes processors, wholesalers, and truckers. And so this whole system can be evolving and creating co-adaptations and co-innovations based on an initial innovation. And that innovation can be something that's introduced from the exterior, for example, from a project or from a policy, and then, or it could be something that is spontaneously arising within the supply chain, for example, by a given segment that begins something different, and then others are coming in with their own innovations. And I have several examples of this. One that is so extremely exciting because it's an example of very, very rapid scaling up of cold storages in India, in the potato sector in Agra, the Taj Mahal area, where you have an initial situation of rapidly growing demand for potatoes as incomes rise and as urbanization rises, especially in the growth of Delhi. And then you have an introduction of an innovation by the National Agricultural Research System of a new variety of potato that's shelf stable, that's more disease resistant. This then leads to more production in that area and switch from wheat to potatoes and a rapid uptake of potato production by farmers. And then there's an enabling environment that helps that to scale up, which you could think of as an innovation, but it's basically a policy intervention of improving roads and putting in better electricity, which then enables an entire boom and a revolution in cold storages by small and medium enterprises in the Agra area. So this is a deep innovation in the midstream of the supply chain in terms of these cold storage investments by private sector, small and medium private sector, that comes in a sense bundled, spontaneously arising as a bundled innovation from the initial innovation of the new variety. And you have a spectacular shift from 1% of the farmers using these cold storages, and then in the end of the 1990s to 10 years later, 99% of the farmers using the cold storages and most of the potato is going through them. So there was a fundamental shift that was really due to the confluence or the bundling of a technological innovation at the farm level, a technological innovation at the midstream level, an enabling environment that allowed both of them to flourish and to grow quickly in symbiosis, and a remarkable upscaling of the cold storages, cold stored potatoes in that case. I have several other examples, but I grow enthusiastic by the minute, so I better stop.
No, great. That's really a great example. And I think it shows how many different actors are involved and how the different pieces work together to achieve a rapid scaling and a big impact potentially for incomes. So Hope, I want to turn to you now to say, ask you a couple questions together. So one is just, why is it so important for us to try to understand how these different innovations work together and how bundling might increase impact? So from a policy perspective, why is that important to do? And then from a research perspective and the work that you're now doing on this meta study, can you tell us a little bit about how much research already exists looking at this? Or is this something very new?
Yeah, so let me think. In terms of why this is important from a policy perspective, I think there has been some disappointment in the failure of a lot of singly, kind of standalone interventions to really transform the productivity and the profitability of farming in particular in big parts of sub-Saharan Africa. I think that's a real disappointment. And that state of the world is something that I think researchers, academic researchers in particular, have contributed to, especially in the last 20 years when we've really been focusing on using RCTs and kind of rigorous intervention design and kind of clean identification. And that's obviously been really important, but it has prioritized the, it's a design that lends itself to the evaluation of a single intervention in isolation, or maybe in some cases layered on top of each other. But there, especially in agriculture, when the outcomes that you're looking at tend to be pretty noisy and also tend to be driven to a large part by stochastic weather shocks and weather conditions, can be really hard to achieve sufficient sample to test the efficacy of interventions kind of layer, to have a really kind of multi-pronged study where you have, as some kind of an extension piece versus a credit piece versus those things together. So it's that kind of a design that can really give us some insights into what is the additional impact, or what are the sort of additional returns or the additional benefits to layering these kinds of bundling these innovations together. So I think that's obviously really important from a policy perspective. We did a study having insight into that. We did a study in Tanzania where we were studying soil testing, the effects of soil testing. And I was working with a team of agronomists, this was during my postdoc, and they were really optimistic about plot level soil testing having transformative effects on everything, right? That like information about the specific constraints, good, detailed, carefully done information about the specific constraints of your plot, your maize plot, were going to be transformative. Right? And so as an economist, I got to be the wet blanket, and to tell them like, there's a real possibility you're not going to see anything unless you add some kind of liquidity here. So we did that. So we were able to have sufficient sample size and sort of at the scale that we needed to test just information, plot level testing, just vouchers to buy agricultural inputs and then them together. And we found, pretty significant impacts in the layered treatment, right? When people got both, and we didn't find very much in the other treatments in terms of yields in particular on maize. So, which is just to say, and that's really important, because if we had just done the soil testing, I think we would have walked away feeling pretty disappointed and maybe not having had that much useful evidence to provide to policymakers, right? It's like, oh, well, we got a null result on plot level soil testing. So maybe that's not the binding constraint. But then we can go to policymakers and say, well, this is pretty interesting. We don't see a lot of traction on the plot level soil testing. But if you combine that with vouchers that allow people to really experiment with, to use the information, then we see some real movement in terms of yields and what people are acting on in terms of the information that they're given. So it sort of opens up new possibilities in terms of thinking about, you know, what it gives you a bit more to go on in terms of what the sort of policy takeaway could be. And still interesting, I think if we hadn't found that there was any effect on the information, you know, plus the soil testing, well, then that's actually pretty interesting potentially, right? Because you sort of loosen liquidity constraint, loosen information to something else that's going on. So it gives you kind of even more information if you've got a tight null in your result, then you've sort of got something else to say. So, which is just to say, so then in terms of research, there's some work now happening. There's a really nice piece, which I think is in review by Josh Deutschman and Amelia Chernstrom and others, evaluating the 1 Acre Fund design, or the 1 Acre Fund project in Kenya, right? And you know, the 1 Acre Fund project basically addresses multiple constraints that small farmers face simultaneously. So they're liquidity, the last mile problem, recommendations based on field trials for hybrid seed for maize production and fertilizer. So lots and lots of things. And they're finding pretty significant impacts, right? So I think people are beginning to sort of think, you know, how do we design things in a way that we can address these multiple constraints? Because those multiple constraints are, you know, they characterize the kinds of production environments and marketing environments that farmers are in. You've got high transactions costs on the production side and really high transactions costs on the marketing side. If you just solve one, you know, then you've got a lot of different, there's a kind of big inferential space, you know, regarding, you know, maybe why you didn't get an effect, or maybe why you got an attenuated effect, or what the effect could be if the constraint that you loosen was combined with something else. So.
Thanks. Those are really great examples. And Tom, I'm going to turn to you, but I'm also looking at the time. So we got started a little bit late. So if you could quickly just add something from your own research perspective, and also about the meta-analysis that you're doing, what you're finding, but maybe 2 minutes so we can turn back to the organizers.
Yeah, I think just an example from Hope's last point, it reminded me in Senegal, there was fantastic research done on the productivity, how to improve the productivity of cowpeas, a basic food. And so some interventions went in, improved the cowpea output. There was a boom in cowpea production. And on the other hand, there hadn't been analysis of the marketing situation. And so the cowpeas ended up piled up on the side of the road rotting, and the farmers disadopted the new technology. That to me is, in a nutshell, why you need to think about either bundling something, you know, when you begin, or at least understanding what are all the innovations that are taking place or should take place to work together to make an initial innovation work. And sometimes the other side I'd like to say is that while there's a lot of discussion of what projects do, donors do, governments do, etc., there's also a great value in understanding what spontaneous booms and bundled innovations are taking place by regular grassroots actors, and then thinking about that, posting the information on KISM, etc., and understanding, and then adapting interventions to the reality of what the constraints are that are being faced by the innovators in the situation. And a wonderful research on this was done on teff in Ethiopia, where Bart Minton and others found that there was a tremendous boom in teff production and in processing and preparation, let's say food preparation of teff in Addis Ababa. And there was a whole confluence of innovations being done, apart from the variety of teff that was put in by the National Agricultural Research System. You had huge investments by wholesalers, logistics actors that were innovating, spontaneously without help from NGOs or projects or government investing a large amount. And there was actually a reduction by 50% of transport costs because of their investments and a huge boom. So it was really a grassroots bundle that was spontaneous. And in that case, researchers could say, look at, this is what's happening already. Government should think about where are the constraints to that even happening better, instead of thinking of reinventing the wheel and coming in with our projects. So I'm a fan of assisted managed, projects, maybe at a stretch, things like the 1 Acre Fund. But I think that we should not ignore that probably 90% of the innovation that's occurring in developing countries right now are these spontaneous innovations of booms that are occurring, and people should see them and figure out what are the constraints to help them occur even better. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And I'm sorry we have to cut short there, but I hope that gives everyone a flavor of the kind of interesting conversations that we can have on the basis of research as we go forward with the KISM. There are a lot of good questions and comments for the KISM in the chat, and I'll turn back over to the organizers. I can just say that even if we're not able to answer those questions now, thank you for the feedback, and we'll definitely be paying attention to those things as we go forward farther.
Thank you so much, Kristen, to Tom and Ho, for that very invigorating discussion and for sharing your experience, your insights, and your expertise today with us. We will now have approximately 10 to 15 minutes. We can cut it short to 10 minutes in the interest of time. Sorry, everybody, we're going a little over for the Q&A, mostly because we have some very interesting questions and comments from our audience. Thank you, Rob, for already answering a couple of questions. There's another one from our very own Jerma Cassie, economist and ICARDA. And the question is, how are we going to ensure a synergetic alliance between KISM and MELIA, the monitoring, evaluation, and learning impact assessment? And I would suggest whether, if Rob wants to take it up, or Kate or Nick want to join in.
Maybe I could take on that question. Well, for those that don't know what MELIA stands for, that's for the monitoring, evaluation, and learning of impact assessments of the initiative and CGIAR more in general. But I think the whole idea of KISM is essentially to provide that synergies. We want to bring together evidence on what works and what does not work, how to put things together, and yeah, as we've been discussing here, how to bundle different innovation, what can we learn from that, and across the various experiences. So that would be part of the initiative results assessment itself. But more importantly is the learning process that we hope to do through the knowledge platform, to share that with anybody interested and stakeholders that are working in agri-food systems to take advantage of this. So I think the KISM is designed to provide that synergy, and we're all here to make that work.
Thank you. Thank you for taking that up, Rob. We have another question and a set of comments. So let me first go to the comments. First comment is by F. Javier Martinez. They're an independent consultant specialist in public policies, trade and markets, and sustainable local development. And their comment is, I suggest achieving cooperation with governments to share policy measures aimed at promoting local markets and complementing the information on KISM. Again, great comment. If anybody wants to come in, chime in, I invite you to the floor. Okay, moving on to the next comment, which is by Adebayo Akinola, agricultural economist at the Obafemi Awolowo University, Nigeria. And they suggest bringing in other relevant institutions like universities to promote and complement activities of KISM. If perhaps Kristen has something to say about that, again, a great comment, or Rob wants to jump in on this.
Yeah, I could jump into this. I think that's, as I said before, KISM is open to everyone. So we'd like to connect with research institutes, universities from around the world. So we offer you here also space to submit your evidence that you have, and that we can use to link up with the other evidence. And the second thing is to also, it's an open invitation for people to join in with the online discussions that we will organize, but you're also open to, we're open for you to submit suggestions for other online discussions and dialogues to be organized through KISM. So yeah, please take on that invitation, and we look forward to your active participation.
Yes,
Thank you,
thanks.
Rob.
And can I
Yes.
just ask Rita if you could put the contact information in the chat also to remind people what you said in your presentation about how they can reach out with pieces of research or other ideas. There's also another question here: how can we incentivize policymakers to make use of this important resource, these important resources? I think this is, of course, one of the ongoing challenges with knowledge platforms, is how to really present knowledge and discuss knowledge in a way that is particularly useful and relevant for different stakeholders. So I don't have an easy answer to this question, but I will say that that will be one of the things that we are trying to do, is have find the pieces of the research findings, or the way to look at the research findings, that have relevance for different audiences. We heard just a moment ago from Hope and Tom about how, for example, the enabling environment or the enabling policy environment might make things easier or less easy. So if we're having a conversation about this topic with policymakers, and we could focus on those things that they can do. What is the research telling us about those things that they can do to try to encourage this kind of bundling of innovation and spectacular progress? Thanks.
Thank you, Kristen. And yes, Rita, please share the information with everybody, and so that they can all, come to us. We can look for more ways to collaborate. Moving on to another question. This is by Chris Hagedorn. They're a consultant in Paris. Their affiliation is Sciences Po University, and they were also a former CFS executive secretary. So this is a multi-part question. And again, I invite Rita, Rob, and Kristen to jump in. Also Tom, Hope, whenever they want. So the question is: using the banana trade with EU as an example, worker wages comprise about 5 to 9% of value chains, whereas retailers capture about 35 to 40%. Given this, how will KISM assist a shift downward of value capture to the farmers' workers at the bottom of the chain? The second part to this question is: can you elucidate on the interface between the platform and the public in terms of increasing inclusivity? And there's another part is IFPRI the transfer mechanism or local extension service providers, and how is KISM factored into national UNFSS transition pathway strategies and planning? I will put this question up in the chat for everyone.
Well, it's quite a few broad questions that were raised. I think they're important, but I think they also highlight how we could, how people can use KISM. Things that we were looking at through the initiative is, for instance, where it comes to value-added sharing along the supply chain, is what are inclusive business models, like contracting between different segments of the value chain and different parties. What's the experience? What are the options to have more inclusive value chain through that mechanism? There's other ways that we also look at in fact, like what are the options for quality certification that may help particularly small-scale producers along supply chains to capture a better price, and through that also a bit more of the value added along the supply chain. So just a few examples that we will research. So KISM per se will not give probably straightforward answer, just the evidence that we have on things that work and do not work. And we hope that through the dialogue on several of the issues that were raised by Chris in his question can be addressed through the dialogue and further interaction to find solutions that fit specific contexts.
I can also add on the specific question about the banana sector and the topic of who's getting the value. Just to say that if you look at the library in KISM, but also on Evidensia, which you can link to via the KISM, you can look up specific topics like wages or kind of value distribution and see what evidence exists already on that topic. You can also look by commodity or by sector. So that could be a way to find out also what has already been said about that. But very important topic, and one that we also discuss in the living income community of practice. So hopefully we can bring some of those discussions into together with the KISM discussions as well.
Thank you for that, Kristen and Rob. And now, since we're already a little bit over time, I would invite Rob to give his final remarks to conclude the event. And thank you to everybody for your thoughtful questions, comments, and answers. Rob, over to you.
Thank you, Swati, and let me also express my thanks to everybody for participating, for your contributions actively, but also those that just listened in. I would say congratulations. KISM is now here for you to use. As emphasized a few times, use it to find the evidence and the information that is for you, that's useful for you, and look out for more of that to come as we move forward in developing this knowledge platform. But we also want you to help us do that by engaging in the online discussions, in the dialogues that we'll organize through the platform, but also by submitting your evidence that you found through your research or your experience as stakeholders in the food and value chains. So we want you to work with us to make KISM not just into a success, I would say, but rather see it as it's yours as much as it's ours, and spread the news about this this platform, and work with us to enhance it and make it to a very lively and interactive platform for all of us to benefit from. So thank you very much all, and I hope that this is just the beginning of a very interactive set of discussions and sharing of knowledge through the KISM platform.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob. Thank you to all our panelists for your insightful contributions today. Big thanks to the audience for your active participation. Everyone, stay connected to KISM and the initiative in the chat. We've shared the link to our websites. We look forward to collaborating with you.